All right, hi guys. I couldn't make it work on Facebook. I hope you can hear me now. If you could please let me know, that'd be great. I'm just gonna go on my Facebook page to make sure it's actually showing up. What a hassle. Facebook keeps changing things all the time, and then every time I try something again, it just did something. So let's see. Oh yeah, okay. It seems like it's working. I hope. Oh wow. The quality is not great from the picture. Well, there's not a whole lot more I can do. I'm running out of options here. Good morning, everyone. It's really awesome to see you guys, and thanks for hanging in there with me as I'm trying to figure out these technical challenges here. And it sounds like you guys can hear me, so that's really great. And I'm just going to post that link again into the comment section that I meant to do earlier, and then I'm going to try to cross-post this again. Okay, it seems like it's working. Alright, it's a little nerve-wracking technology, but I know you guys are used to having some technical difficulties in that department. This is not new. Unfortunately, Facebook is causing issues that way, and it never seems to quite work the way one hopes. So let me just cross-post real quick too. But there we go. Almost done, and then we can get started. Oh boy, it sure gets the adrenaline going. Alright, and then let's post it to my regular page as well. All right. Okay, very good. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. All right, so where am I? So that I can see your comments. Very good. Yeah, so feel free to post comments, questions, tips, and tricks, because we are all a community here, and I want to make sure that we all can share a little bit and, share what's worked, because, every animal is different, and so there's no one size fits all. So anyways, for those who don't know me, I'm Dr. Odette Suter. I'm a holistic veterinarian in the Chicago area, and I am very passionate about helping animals, of course, and also about educating people. That's why I do these Facebook Lives, but I also have a book that I wrote, What Your Vet Never Told You. It's available on Amazon, and I posted the link in one of the first comments. And I also have a video series that goes into a lot of depth into all sorts of different, subjects that are important to keep your animals healthy and, keep them living a long life that is really happy and healthy with you guys. So anyways, those links are in one of the first comments, so feel free to check it out. I also have a newsletter that I send out every so often, so there's also the sign-up link for that in that comment. All right, well, it's really nice to see you. A lot of people that I've seen before and know, and I'm gonna, my eyes kind of wander. It's because I'm looking at the comments on my computer, because it's just a little bit easier to scroll, but it's really great to see you all. And I know with the fireworks coming up, I know there's a lot of anxiety going on. I hear from people, a lot of them are, can you give me something for my dog? It's awful, and proves, provides a lot of stress to a lot of people. But I don't want to just talk about dogs. I want to include the other animals as well, including cats and horses a little bit in that. So I just want to start out with a little bit of numbers, because that's always important. I want you to know you guys are not alone. There are a lot of dogs that have issues with fireworks and noise sensitivity in general. About 1/3 of the animals or dogs in the United States tend to have noise aversion, and that number may be higher even, because it seems like everybody's talking about it. And a lot of animals, once they have experienced a fearful event like fireworks, for example, they will require several days or even longer to recover behaviorally from that. And one patient that comes to mind, he happened to be outside doing his business, and there was fireworks going on right next door, and that was even during the day, because right now we're not even safe anymore, because fireworks are happening all the time, so it's not really a 4th of July thing anymore, and it's not something that is only done in the evening when it's dark, which is, how we did that as kids, we waited until it's dark. But no, they do it during the day, at any given time. So it's really difficult, to kind of predict and be prepared. But in any case, this dog was outside with one of his guardians, and the firework went off, and he got freaked out. And so for several days, he didn't want to go outside to do his business, especially at that particular time. And he also associated it with the owner. So he also didn't want to go out with the owner at that time. So, they kind of take a picture, of all the things that happened during that fearful event, and then they associate it. So that can make things more difficult, and, that's then also what takes them longer to kind of recover from it, because they associate it with a lot of different things. So it's not just the trigger of the noise, it can also then be the trigger of the time of day, the trigger of who they were out with and what they were doing, and the location they were in when it happened. Because the same dog, the owner is in the process of moving, and they've been starting to help him get used to the new environment, and so they've been going over to the new house in the evenings, and he's fine over there. So he doesn't have that same association. So it can be very challenging and a little bit more complex. Same with storms. A lot of animals, they will already feel it when it's coming, even if the sky is all blue and there's really no storm in sight. They already start to feel the change of the barometric pressure and the static in the air. So there are a lot of things that kind of play a role. So it's not just the individual phobia, but it has associations. And there are more than 3% of dogs that will actually exhibit behavioral changes for weeks and even months. So it's quite awful, really. In my opinion, fireworks should never have been invented. I think they're useless. They create a lot of fear, and they're also polluting the environment on top of everything. So, as fun as they were when I was a kid, I see more challenges from it than benefits, to be honest. One thing they also have as a number is that 1 in 5 dogs will go missing during fireworks, so make sure it's not one of yours, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So obviously you guys know your dogs really well, and you know how they show their fears, but I just want to talk briefly about the different signs that they can exhibit. One is obviously pacing and being restless, trembling, cowering, hiding, and freezing, being immobile, seeking your attention, refusing to eat, and vocalizing can be part of that too. But then there are some that are a little bit less obvious, such as lip licking, so if a dog continues to lip lick and yawn and that sort of thing, that can also be a sign of fear, or having the ears back and a little bit of a frown, that can be part of fear as well. And there are obviously very different degrees of that. And again, you have to kind of evaluate it for your own animal, how it is, because that will really tell you what you may need to do, because some dogs are so fearful that all the natural things are not going to help. And on that note, I want to share with you a little bit of the study findings that were done based on an online questionnaire survey that was done of over 1,200 respondents. They just wanted to know what was working for these animals and what people had most success with. What they found was that environmental modification, which is basically creating hiding places and windows and blinds closed and playing music, was not quite as successful as some of the other ways to do it. What they found was the most successful was actually doing counter conditioning, which is basically playing some music of fireworks or storms or whatever your animals are afraid of, while feeding them a good treat. So basically desensitization and counter conditioning. So that was one of the most successful ways of getting animals to relax and have less firework fears and phobias. So the success rate was about 70%. And then relaxation training was also very helpful, had about the same percentage, 69%. And relaxation training, the way that works is you start with massaging your dogs in long strokes, or petting your dog or your animal, and then you associate it with a word that then kind of helps them remember, okay, if I say relax, then that's what that means, and they start associating it with that feeling that they had when you were petting them or massaging them. And then once they're actually conditioned, you can use it in stressful situations even without the massage. So you just say the word relax or whatever works for you, and then they will kind of start to relax. And the way that works is really you're training the nervous system to get into a pattern of relaxation as a result. So it kind of helps to strengthen the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the healing and relaxing and digesting part of the autonomic nervous system, where which is the other, the opposite of the fight or flight. So you're basically kind of helping to train that nervous system to be stronger and helping them to access it more easily with this relaxation training. So those two, from a more of a behavior modification standpoint, were the most effective. And then the next effective one was medication at 69% improvement. And there are a lot of drugs that can be used, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about those in a minute. And then they also checked for feed and play. That was also quite effective. Distracting them while it's happening, that seemed to help more than the coddling coddling helped too, but the ignoring part, that didn't really work all that well. So it's better to actually interact, feed, play, distract, and these types of things, they seem to work better than ignoring completely. Pressure vests work really well as well. For example, what is it called now? I'm missing the word. But anyways, pressure vests that put pressure on the body help as well. And then on an from other alternative modalities such as nutraceuticals that are calming, like L-theanine, melatonin, these types of things, pheromones, other types of herbs, homeopathics, Bach flower essences, essential oils. For those, they found that there was only about a 27 to 35% improvement, and it's really not much higher than what's expected for a placebo effect. So again, in the survey, it didn't sound like it was helping that much, making that much of a difference. But again, it very much depends on how stressed your animals are, how severe it is, because the less severe it is, the more likely some of these more gentle approaches will help. Whereas if your dog is in like a full-blown panic, you can do all the lavender essential oils you want, or, give Bach flower essences. It's not going to work. So it really depends on where your animal is. And the thing is, too, when the animal is in a, full-blown panic mode, they are not able to learn. So all the behavior modifications and counter conditioning things are not going to really help, because they're in such panic that they can't learn. And I'm sure you've all experienced that, right? When you were in a situation where you were so freaked out that you couldn't even talk, or that your brain went completely blank and you couldn't really learn anything. So for these animals, it's really important that we bring their anxiety and stress level down to a level where they can still learn something, where they have the ability to do that. And sometimes that will require some drugs. And again, as a holistic vet, I'm not a huge fan of drugs, but I'm also not a huge fan of having dogs walk around with major anxiety, because that is not healthy either. And when they get put into such high anxiety level and panic level, it also trains the body or the nervous system to respond in more ways of panic in possibly other situations. So it can kind of get transferred, because any experience that we have creates more, trains the nervous system to respond in a certain way. So if we train them to be relaxed, it will train them to become more relaxed over time and have better access to that. But if they're getting trained to have anxiety, that will also, increase that, neurologic pathway of being more stressed and more anxious. So it's really, in a lot of dogs that have anxiety, and we see a lot of them these days, we have to get the anxiety level down so that we can even make a difference. And then eventually they can get off of it, but sometimes it's the kinder thing to do, to help them out. One perfect example is my neighbor's dog. He has a lot of anxiety, separation anxiety, and they finally put him on some medication, and now he still has some of that anxiety, but he's not nearly as stressed, and he's in a place where he can learn more. So when he comes to visit me, when they're out, especially when fireworks are going off, he will still take food, whereas before he was so stressed out that he wouldn't even take any food. So he's definitely, it's kind of at a more tolerable level. So anyway, so that's for the alternatives, can help really great. And again, you have to try it out, see what works for your animals. There's no one size fits all. But, overall, it seems like medication, counter conditioning, and relaxation trainings were the top 3 things that worked the best. So let's talk a little bit about the different, since we were talking about drugs, let's just talk a little bit about those first, and then we'll kind of work our way to more natural things, and also what we need to think about, in and around those events that are really important. So for drugs, and that's something obviously that you would have to talk to your regular veterinarian. And again, because fireworks are happening, daily already, it's a little bit more challenging. But I would definitely, suggest, if you have a very stressed out dog, to communicate with your veterinarians and see what the best options are. because there are some anti-anxiety drugs that will start, that you have to give for a while until they really kick in, which are the SSRIs, the serotonin reuptake inhibitors. But then we also have drugs that work pretty much more for situations, that we can use for situations, such as alprazolam, which is close to Valium. It's in the same family of drugs. There's trazodone, there's Benadryl that can also help with some. So some of those we can use more just whenever needed. But the important thing with these drugs, especially the ones that don't, that we use more situational, they definitely have to be given before the event starts, because if you already have a stressed out dog, it may not work nearly as well, or it may not work at all. So there's also a drug called Celio. It's a gel that you can put in the mouth, and that one starts to work in 30 to 60 minutes and lasts about 2 to 3 hours. Trazodone, you have to give it about an hour and a half to an hour, an hour to an hour and a half before it starts as well. All right, so that's as far as drugs are concerned. And now I want to get to a little bit of the different, more alternative modalities that you can use. For example, there are diffusers that you can use that have pheromones in them, such as Adaptil, for example. And these pheromones, they're produced by the mom when she's right after she's giving birth to the puppies, and is lactating, basically. And what it does is it gives the puppies a sense of well-being and calming. And so they've now been using this Adaptil, this pheromone, to also help adult dogs, to help them relax a little bit more, and have some calming effects. You can also use melatonin. Again, with a lot of these things, you have to sort of try it ahead of time to see what the effect is when your animal is not stressed out, because if there's no effect from the melatonin dose that you're giving, it's most likely not going to work either when the fireworks are hitting. So you want to, make sure that you can kind of try it out beforehand. L-theanine is another one that also helps to kind of decrease anxiety. There are a lot of flower essences out there, including Bach flowers, that you can use. But again, try it out, see how it works. If your dog is anxious in general, you can try out these flower essences for other events that are, creating some anxiety, and see if it helps. You can also use essential oils. My neighbor's dog, for example, he does quite well sometimes with a little bit of lavender, so I dab a little bit of lavender on his forehead. He doesn't particularly like it, but it seems to do a little, calm him down a little bit more. He tends to be a little more relaxed as a result. Chamomile, for example. So there are a lot of different essential oils that can be used. Calmile from Animal EO. There's a lot of them. Xylkine is one of them as well. Thanks for mentioning that, Deborah. I was just getting to that. That's a milk-based one that also has anti-anxiety properties. Again, you have to try it to see if it works. There are different homeopathic remedies that can help as well for firestorms. Homeopet TFLN is one of them, and you would give the drops, ahead of time as well, probably about 3 to 4 times a day, on the day of the fireworks. You can also use valerian, for example. So there are a lot of herbal tinctures that have great, anti, or calming effects, but some of them you have to start giving ahead of time because it takes a little bit of time to build up in the system. RX Vitamins has a great supplement that I use quite frequently. It's called NutriCalm, and that one has a combination of different nutrients that I just mentioned, such as valerian. It has some ashwagandha in it. which is, decreases stress levels, helps the adrenal glands. It has tryptophan, which is a precursor for melatonin. It has catnip in it that also gives them a little bit of a sense of high, especially for your cats. And I have a funny story. I have a little bag of catnip at my practice, and there are 4 cats who live in the practice. I mean, in the store, because my practice is within a pet store. And so when I leave the door open, there's always one cat that comes in and steals the bag, and I find the bag somewhere in the pet store later. I'm like, oh, how'd that get there? But I caught the cat in the act one time, and so I sprinkle a little bit of catnip for them. So that can be a very good thing for your cats too, just to sprinkle a little bit of catnip. L-theanine is also part of that NutriCalm as well. So there are a lot of things in that, and can be used for anxiety in general. It can be used as a long-term product. It's not, it doesn't cause side effects, basically. And then, CBD oil can also have a calming effect on pets. Again, you would want to try that and see which dose would be required, and that may be a bit of trial and error. The thing is that, some dogs need just a little bit of CBD oil and it knocks them out, and other dogs need a whole lot. And so, I usually start on a low dose and then work my way up just to kind of see where it's at. And obviously, on a day where they're not stressed out, you may need much less to kind of knock them out than if on a day where, there's more stress. But just the same as with valerian, CBD will also build up in the system a little bit. So it's better to start giving it ahead of time as well. At least that's what I would recommend. So that you can, have a little bit of a build up of that, and then certainly give it at least twice a day, because you want to have a good effect, and maybe give it, an hour to 2 hours before the event, so that it has a little bit of time to kick in. And you can also redose as it goes, because some of these firework shows, they can go on for hours, if every neighbor of yours is doing, fireworks. So anyway, so those are some of the nutraceuticals, more of the holistic things that you can do. I mentioned the thunder shirt. We don't really know how that exactly works, but the thought is that it helps to release oxytocin, and oxytocin makes them feel more calm and helps that way. Other things that can be done as well is to give them treats and food and chews and things like that, because that's very distracting for them. So while the fireworks are going on, if you do some of that, you're actually also training them to do better. And they have found that doing that actually will increase the likelihood that they will be less stressed the next time around. And of course it has to be a high value thing. So you have to kind of your animals, what they like best. Some dogs that are not very much into treats, they may be more into play. So you want to, do some of that. So those are some of the things that you can help with as well. All right, so that's that. So what can you do, or what do you have to do around firework events and storm events as well, in order, to prepare? So again, because a lot of animals can get lost during that time, I highly recommend that you take a current photo of your animals, so that you have the most accurate one, and not one from when they were a puppy. If you have a 12-year-old dog that gets lost and you give a puppy picture, it's not very likely that they'll find it. You can also make a den, although it's not as successful as some of the other things that I mentioned. You want to definitely secure your house. You want to make sure that the doors to the outside are locked. If you have a party, yourself, and have friends over, make sure that your animals are safely stowed away in a room where they can't get out, where your people can't get in, your visitors. If you have to lock the door, do that. Obviously, when the fireworks then start happening, you don't want to just leave them there all by themselves if they have anxiety. Obviously, that doesn't work. You want to also find out what your neighbors' plans are. Go house door to door and ask them, when are you going to do fireworks? What time? How long? What days? What kind? Are they going to be loud? Are they just going to be like a light show? Because what that will do is it will also help bring awareness to your neighbors that you have a dog that has anxiety, and that you're relying on them, and that you're probably not the only one with an animal that has anxiety. So it kind of opens up the communication and the discussion, and maybe it can kind of create a bit more community in your neighborhood, where you're all working to help the animals, with their fears and that sort of thing. But of course, you're always going to have neighbors who say, well, I don't really care. I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do whenever, and I'm just going to do it as I please, and they're not going to inform you, but it's still worth putting it out there, so that people are aware that, it's an issue, because I think a lot of people don't even think about that, especially if they don't have animals. And then also be sure that your animals are wearing some form of identification on them, or are microchipped, whatever you choose. But make sure they wear at least one collar that has your name and information and phone number on it. And if you have to have a second thing on them, like a harness, for example, that with that information on it again, that'd be great, because sometimes things can come off as they get lost. It might also be worth putting a long leash on, keeping a long leash attached in case they get out, because that leash could get tangled up somewhere and then they can't go anywhere, which then makes it easier to catch them, because a lot of dogs that get loose, they're hard to catch because they're already freaked out. Although obviously a long leash attached to them can also cause other issues, but we don't want them to hang themselves, I guess. But things like that, even in your home, if you feel like they're freaked out, just tie them to you, have a belt, and just drag them around with you, so that they're with you at all time. Especially if you have a party and people are going in and out of the house, make sure your yard is secured as well. And if you have a dog or a cat or a horse that has some special needs, horses tend to get loose a little bit less, although it certainly is possible if they live in a situation where they can go in and out and just live in a pasture. So you definitely want to put some identification on your horse as well. You can spray it on them, for example. You can also keep a halter on, although sometimes that can be an issue too, because they can get caught, so that can be a problem. Or if you can also put something in their mane, you can kind of braid some ribbons in it with your information in there, in their tail as well, just so that they have some form of identification on them. And of course, if they were to get loose, contact animal control and the police, especially in the case of horses. You definitely want to do that. With your cats, I think ahead of time it would be great if you can get them used to wearing a collar, even if they're cats that are in the house. I think it would be a good idea so that you can put it on. And then, what I was going to say is, if you have an animal that has a medical condition, also make sure to write it on the collar or harness, or whichever part of an identification that you're using. For example, if your dog needs blood pressure medication, or has diabetes, or whatever it may be, or Addison's, for example, if they are needing cortisol on a regular basis in order to make it. So all of these things, write it down. Write down little things that you think are important, for people to know about your dog if they find, or your cat or your horse when they find them. So those are some of the things that you can do ahead of time, planning-wise. And then during the fireworks, I mean, not right during the fireworks, but right before, I would give them plenty of exercise so that they're more tired. A more tired animal will be a little bit less anxious as well. Make sure you do it before dark and before fireworks starts. Again, that can be a bit difficult because people are doing it, any time of day these days. Certainly to block out the light show, you can close your shades and drapes to eliminate those. You can also put some music on, some soothing music to keep them calm and to also override some of the sounds of the fireworks out there. If you have a finished basement, you can also go down there with your animals and hang out and just have some fun. And then diffusing calming essential oils are certainly helpful, even if they're not doing, the whole, taking care of the whole anxiety situation. I would still certainly add it, because I think in the end we just have to do a bit of a combination of things. I think that probably would work the best. And then if you do need to take your pets outside for potty time, make sure they're on the leash and that they're in a secured yard. So even in the yard, don't let them go loose. Just make sure you have a leash on them. If they have difficulty peeing or pooping when they're on the leash, just get a really long leash, so that it kind of feels like they're far away from you enough that you're not spying on their business, basically. But you definitely want to keep them on the leash, because scared pets, they can bolt and they can lose sense of direction. So you definitely want to make sure you have them, tightly secured. All right, I'm just checking my cheat sheet here to see what else I wanted to mention. But I think that's pretty much kind of it. Oh, one more thing after. You definitely want to make sure that you check out your yard to make sure there are no firework leftovers that made it into your yard, because you definitely don't want to have your animals ingest those. So make sure you you check out your yard before you let your animals out in the morning. All right. So let me see. I'm sure there are a lot of questions and such, so I'm just gonna get to the comments here. All right. Let me see. Sometimes as they get older, they have more difficult time with it. Young, that's true, because again, as I mentioned, the more events they had where there's anxiety, the more the nervous system is trained to respond. So it's like a little bit like PTSD in a way. So yes, that certainly is a possibility as they get older. One good thing about getting older and them having a little bit of hearing loss going on is that they actually tend to do better with fireworks, because they just don't hear them anymore. Obviously, we always want our animals to be able to hear, but I guess if there's one positive of a dog not hearing well anymore, that would be, the noise phobias. Gail, my 100-point dog tries to get in the cat carrier. If he hears fireworks, he obviously won't fit. Yeah, well, maybe the head will. I have trazodone left over from TPLO, wondering if I could give him that one closer to the 4th of July. I would recommend that you talking to your vet about that. I can't really tell you yes or no because I don't know your dog. So I would recommend talking to your vet, especially if it's a trazodone that you've had for a long time. It may not be active anymore, so you definitely want to also check out the expiration date on that. And there may be better options. And especially if your dog is trying to get into the cat carrier, it may also be worth making his own den, since that seems to be what he's looking for. So you could make his own little cocoon so that he can get into that. Okay, it seems like I'm missing some comments here. Krista, me too. I was wondering if it's my Wi-Fi, but I guess not. Oh, never mind. That was still from before with the sound. Leon, we used Dog Health CBD Calm several days before. That's awesome. Gail, yeah, I think they should be banned as well. My dog Luna hid in the bathroom in the tub. Draco, yes, that is an option too. You know, some dogs like that, and you could also pull the curtain, I guess. Some dogs just like to hide. Salivating, yes, definitely, that's another sign. Facebook sucks, you come in and out. I am sorry, you guys. Yeah. Unfortunately, that's probably not just Facebook, that's probably my phone and reception. I live out in the boonies, so I don't have the best reception with my phone. And then Mercola stress support is good as well. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Kelly. And then Sean, are you taking new patients? At the moment, I actually have a waiting list. Sorry, but I can always put you on that. Gail, I had a discussion with my neighbors and they shot them off anyway. So I took them off my friends list. My dog is part of family and deserves respect also. That is true, but you know, you can't change people. You just have to adjust as much as possible, but still I think it's worth sharing, maybe even doing a little video of your dog, taking that and putting it out on Facebook. You know, if you have a neighborhood Facebook page, so that they are aware of what's going on, and you know, help, you know, try to find a solution that works for everybody. That would work. If you have the ability, go somewhere where there are no fireworks. When I grew up, my dog used to be afraid of fireworks as well, and what we would do is we would just go over to France, because in Switzerland, you know, where I lived, we were neighboring, I mean, we were right next to France, so we just would go over there when it was the Swiss national holiday. But again, that was only one night. It wasn't like months of fireworks, because it seems like people are doing fireworks even on their birthdays and whenever. So it's definitely more difficult, but that certainly is an option as well. Trying Botox pellets. Not sure it helps. Yeah, no comment on that, except for, yeah, I would, Botox, I don't know. That doesn't sound like a good idea to me. But I would have to research that. I'm not even sure what Botox pellets are. But if it's the kind of Botox that you inject into the, you know, under the skin to make the wrinkles go away, I'm not sure that that's what I would be using. Yeah, so I'm not familiar with Botox pellets, so no, I can't comment on that. There was something else I was thinking about. Oh yes, one other thing in the drug department, ACE, which is acepromazine, is not a very good anti-anxiety medication. All it does is it sedates them to the point where they just can't move very well, but the anxiety level is still there. So it's basically like, you know, you're being attacked by somebody, but your body won't move. So that's much more, you know, scary, because then it puts you completely out of control. So acepromazine is not a good anti-anxiety medication. It doesn't take away the anxiety. It just basically sort of paralyzes them a little bit. So not a good medication for that. Yeah, Nutricom is a good one. Pacing, panting, clawing doors. Yeah. I mean, definitely, if you have a dog that has a lot of anxiety, or a cat, or a horse, don't leave. Stay. You know, don't go to, you know, to other light shows, you know, fireworks, because, you know, they need you. They need you. And I know it goes without saying, but I have seen situations where that didn't seem like the logic that was used. So definitely stay with them when that's happening. With the dose of melatonin, that will very much depend on your animal. I would just start at a low dose and try it out and see what it takes to really get them more sedated. You know, on a day where there's no fireworks, so that at least you know where to start. Lorraine, can they take Nutricom and homeopath fireworks at the same time? Definitely, a lot of these things can be used at the same time. Obviously, if two different things have a lot of one same thing in it, like valerian or whatever else it may be, it might be better not to use both. So, you know, you don't want to kind of double up on everything, I guess. I know someone who goes near the airport where it's not allowed. Oh, well, that's a good idea, Krista. Um, that's a very good idea. Yeah, places where it's not allowed. And in Italy, they actually have a town where they do fireworks, but they are not allowed to use the kinds that make noise. So they can only have silent fireworks. So, you know, if we want to change things, it may also be worth working on the law and writing letters to the lawmakers, having, you know, going around, having people sign petitions. Although we can also do that online these days. I guess I'm old school. But anyways, these types of things to help change the law, because you know, if we have to kind of think more globally and kind of go a little beyond just our individual thing and help to make changes. And I know, for example, in Illinois, I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe it's illegal to actually do fireworks, you know, private fireworks. You can only do them, you know, like in a public place where it's organized, basically. But, you know, the police is probably so overwhelmed with work that it doesn't work. But still, you know, just call them. You know, call them. And if enough people call and if enough people make fuss about it, maybe things will change. You know, if enough people don't buy the fireworks anymore, you know, because we vote with our money. Or if we, yeah, it's just about bringing awareness there and just making a fuss about it and saying, look, there's some issues with that. Let's change, you know, let's figure out a better way to do this. Oh, borax pellets. Yeah, I'm not really familiar with borax pellets either, so. Oh, Botox. I was thinking about Botox. Yeah, anyways, Botox is not a good idea. But borax pellets, I'm not sure. All right, so it looks like I kind of got to the end of the questions and comment sections. It was so nice hanging out with you guys. I hope it helped. I hope you can keep your animals as safe as possible and make a difference. Again, the best time to really work on phobias is between firework events. And same for storms. For example, we have a lot of more storms going on in the summer here in Illinois, so the best time to work on these things is in the winter time, when there are no storms. Same with fireworks. There's a lot less fireworks, obviously, when it's when in the winter time, because people don't go outside as much here. So that's when you really need to start working on it, and not just couple days before. And if you do need help from your veterinarian, make sure that you actually call them now or tomorrow to get it going, because 2 days before they're going to be completely overworked with requests. So make sure you give them a little bit of time to get things in order and be able to help you as much as possible. And then, oh yeah, one thing that I forgot to mention, which is absolutely crucial: do not take your animals to a firework show, because that really is not a good idea. But it really goes without saying, but I had to say it anyway. All right, well, it was so good to see you guys. Have a wonderful 4th of July period. Hopefully everything will go well with your animals and there won't be too much stress. And yeah, I'm gonna be praying for all of the animals, of course, especially also for the wild animals, because they too are very much affected by this awful noise and can get into a lot of trouble with that. So maybe also drive more slowly if you're out on the road during those days, so that if they come out in a panic, that you're not running them over, that sort of thing. But again, we just need to change. We need to make changes. We need to be more cognizant of everybody, and respect everybody's choices and feelings and fears and all of that, and work as a community and love each other. So on that note, I love you guys all. It was so